Hi, welcome to the Inspiration of Painting. Well, as you know, we're going to work on our horse today in this particular program. And we're going to start with, I've got a photograph here that I took here some time ago. And it's a good idea if you work from your own reference material whenever you can, because it makes the painting much easier. Because you were there and you could feel the atmosphere, you could see it with your own eyes, and then you could sketch it or photograph it or both. It just makes the painting go much smoother. What we're going to do is keep the background relatively simple, kind of misty like you see there, and then focus only on the horse, the mama and the baby. This is a beautiful photograph, and I'm really excited about doing this one. I think you'll enjoy it too. So let's get started. The first thing, of course, is to block in the sky, then our distant hills, a few little trees, and then our grass. Relatively simple things that we've done many, many times before. But we're going to have to get the background in there as with any painting. We'll go right down to our palette with our great big sky brush. Get the excess water out of it here. Probably need a little gesso this time, so let me get just a little bit of gesso out here. And we want just a very simple sky. There's no clouds or anything. So, and also, instead of wetting your sky this time, if your brush has enough moisture in it, just go ahead and put gesso on with whatever water's in your brush, because this time we don't have a lot of sky to blend, so the water's not as important. It's only when you have a large area to blend that you have to worry about wetting it. Okay, now after you put a fairly good coat of gesso on there, then we just want a muddled sky. This guy's even got kind of a pinkish cast to it, but I'm going to go ahead and put a little blue in it. So I'm going to take my ultramarine blue, a little burnt sienna, maybe a touch of red, a little more blue there. Now keep in mind that the sky up here has gesso in it, so it'll get kind of light. So you're going to make your mixture slightly darker than you really think you want it. I added a little burnt umber to it there, and that kind of made it just sort of a muddled color, which is just what we want. Yeah, just kind of like that. Now, it's going to get kind of light, so I'm going to add some more color in a minute, but just start like this. Block it in quickly. Remember the 3 P's, don't piddle, play, or putter. Now, if you want to have just a little bit of blue or, some other color to it, maybe a touch of purple even, go ahead. Just as long as it stays light, I really don't care what color it turns out to be. Okay, so now I've got a little bit of color in it, but it's still very light and soft. Alright, now I'm just going to blend it, then I'm going to quit on it. Okie dokie. Now then, let's get, if you use these big X's, it'll smooth out and be very, very nice. There we go. Okay, now, the next step is to put in the distant hills, and they're just very softly blended in back there. There's not much to it. Rinse your brush out and lay it down. And then switch to your number 10 bristle brush. And we're going to take just this color here while this is still wet. As you work in the same pile, add a little green to it, a little purple. And start right back here like this. What I want you to do, you put the color on first. Just get that color on there. We're using green and purple and that white and that mud that was in there that we had down there. Now I've overdone it here a little bit. Okay, just put that on fairly thick right across this horizon line here. Like so. And then when you get this covered good, and I'll show you what we're going to do. This is pretty interesting. Alright, now once that's on there, you take your brush. Now these are tree covered hills, as you can see. So what you want to do is just take your brush and gently work up into the background. Now by having a wet background, see, that color is very subtle and soft. And this is all you're going to do, is just quickly build some irregular shapes to this hill, so that you know there's trees back there. You don't have to make a lot of big trees or anything, just very soft and subtle. Excuse me. like so. And then when that dries, we'll come in with some of the intermediate size, the bigger trees. And that's pretty much it. You can just push it up, fuzz it, and just have a good time creating a little rough edge there. Okay, now then. Now be sure there's no hard edge here, because a hard edge will really get you in trouble. Now before we can put those big trees on, the bigger trees, we got to go ahead and get the underpainting for the grass. Now this is going to be really simple. It's it's a little different, and we're going to use our big sky brush for this. And wipe out this excess water. We're going to start right at the horizon line back here, and we're going to put an underpainting. Now notice the grass in this is a beautiful golden color. Very light and airy. It's got a few little flowers and some green stuff in it, a few little darker weeds. That's all we're going to have, is a very, very simple grassy foreground. We're not going to put a lot of effort into it. But it'll still be so beautiful because of its simplicity. Now we're going to start at the top here. Take your brush, work in the same area here. Take burnt sienna. And to this burnt sienna, I want you to add a little burnt umber, a touch of yellow. And let's kind of experiment here and see if we can get a nice, okay, this is what you want. You want not a real dark brown, but sort of an intermediate shade of brown. And you're going to start at the top like this, and you're going to work your way down. See how I'm doing this? And it's kind of a feathering stroke. Keep it very, very soft, but yet apply enough pressure when you have to be sure the canvas is covered. The canvas has to be covered. All right, now this is just the underpainting. We'll come back over that with the grass here in a minute. Now you'll probably have to remix this several times. So for those of you that struggle with mixing and want to pre-mix a fairly large pile of this color, feel free to do so. I don't do that because I like to end up with a variety of shades of color as I do this. And that's what will happen when you remix it several times. You'll get different colors. Okay, add just enough water to it to get it to move. See, like this shade, just a little browner, a little reddish. Make sure it's covered good. It doesn't really matter if you have to do anything to get it on. Just come back and use this vertical stroke to kind of get the blend on it here. Now it's fairly flat back here. Don't make any big hills or anything. Keep it kind of, and let it sort of blend in with the background. Don't want any hard edges. It's one of my pet peeves in painting, is hard edges. Not that you can't have them, but in the style that I work in, and for the most part, most artists prefer to have a softer edge. I'm going to mix up a little more. I'm using the burnt umber, a little burnt sienna, a little yellow. Just keep it moving. Remix again. A little umber, a little sienna, and a little yellow. And of course, you can always end up with a little white in it if it's too dark. The most difficult part of this painting for most of you, I really believe, is going to be painting in not painting, but drawing the horses. I think you'll do fine on the painting part. So you might want to do a little practice drawing those animals on a piece of paper maybe before you get started here. Okay, a little more color here, a little brown, a little yellow. It's amazing how much use this big brush gets. Okay, now you got that part done. Looks real good, or as good as it can look at this point. Now rinse that brush out and lay it down. What we're going to do at this point now, it's probably still kind of wet up here, and just because of the humidity here, it is a little wet, so I'm going to take just a second and dry that a little bit because I want to get my bigger trees in there before we can start this foreground. So again, if you have a hairdryer handy, and you might want to add that to your list of materials or tools, because when you're painting in a hurry and you're trying to get something done, a hairdryer is just ticket. It really gets the job done and you can move on. Now, another thing I want you to think about here while you're doing this, when we sketch in this animal here, if you haven't taken the sketching or drawing seminar or class or seen it on TV or have the video, I think it would be a really good idea for you to get the drawing video, because it has a very in-depth, detailed study on how to draw the animals by using the negative space rule. And that's a very, very, very important thing. Okay, I think this is dry enough now that I can put these trees in here. Now, as you can see here, there aren't very many trees, but there are a few, and they're just a little darker, and so they can come forward. They'll be right on the edge back here, and then more grasses will come up in front of it when we're done with it. So we switch to our number 10. I'll put this here so we can keep an eye on it. Switch to our number 10 bristle brush. And what we're going to do is come down here and take a little bit of Hooker's green, and I just keep mixing in the same pile where the brown is. A little touch of purple. Maybe a little burnt sienna. Touch more green maybe. You can throw anything in it to kind of warm it up and give it the color that you want. Now all you're going to do here is just take your brush and kind of go straight on, creating some distant trees, just like this. Now the background's still just a little wet, so it'll come through a little bit, and if you hit it too much, you'll create a little hole. So just, don't spend a lot of time on it. Now we don't have to paint it just like we see it here in the photograph. We want to paint it like we feel like it should be, although that's pretty nice. It's rare that you get a photograph that has all of the compositional components and color and everything, but this one's in pretty good shape actually. Come along here. I need to make that a little darker. It needs to be quite a bit darker than that background there. That's a little better. Okay, there's a lot of little smudgy ones back there in the distance and so forth, but okay, come over here and there's one right here. See, just dab it. Makes it real interesting to have those different shapes. Now, if you've been following the programs, we haven't had a chance on our TV programs to do too much with the animals because we don't have as much time sometimes, or at least in one sitting, and it kind of breaks it up if you have to wait for 2 or 3 weeks to see what goes on. So this will be good for you. And I think this is going to, it's different than some of the animals. The horses, their biggest problem with horses is getting their shape right. Their fur or their hair is real smooth, so you don't have a lot of textures to worry about. Mostly this shading, highlighting and shading. Making sure the muscle is there and so forth and so on. Okay, I think that's pretty much all we need to do for this. And we may come back and put some little highlights, but I want you to notice now I'm just softening this edge here. We still see the background there. And we may darken and put some little highlights after a while because there are some on there, but they have to let it dry first. Okay, now this should be about dry enough to work on. So now we switch back to our big brush again. And what we're going to do here, and I just keep working in the same spot here, you'll take yellow and a little white, touch of burnt sienna, or red, or both. Now it's important that you get this down here and you kind of spread it out. And you're going to start back here by using a very light stroke. See, and this looks just like the background grass. See how that looks there? Feather it. Get sort of this golden color. Come across. This is the distant grass. Just be sure that your brush is feathered out, see, so you can see each individual's blade, so to speak. Isn't that beautiful? See how soft that is? It looks just like the photograph. Now if you get too much water, you won't get anything. If it's too dry, you won't get anything. If you look down here on the palette, it's kind of soupy, but it's not to the point that it is, you know, really transparent. And I work it really good into my brush, see, and make sure all the bristles are flattened and spread out. Then by the time I get up here to my canvas, it's kind of automatically ready to go. And we'll come back and highlight that a little brighter. This is just, again, we're still beginning with underpainting here. Always start from the top and come down so that you can overlap your strokes. This is very quick, very loose, very free. Don't get in a, this is going to sound controversial, don't get in a hurry to the point though where you don't cover the canvas good, okay? What I mean by quick is don't piddle with it either. It's a quick, clean stroke, sharp and definite. Okay, now when I get about this far down, I'm going to change my color just a little bit. I'm going to get some yellow, some burnt sienna, a little white maybe. Okay, this will be a little brighter, as you can see. My strokes are a little longer now because we're getting closer to the foreground. And the weeds are a tad bit taller. I keep mixing up. I'm going to make it just a little brighter. See what happens when you get a color that's not, when it's not mixed in real good. Fortunately, this kind of fits in, but the white's just a little too definite. So I'm going to go down to my brush here and work it in good. Come back. I think this is interesting for you. Yellow. Okay. Now, we start in the background with just white and yellow now. Keep mixing it up here. Going to make it just a little brighter. Goes a little quicker this time. A little shorter strokes now. Right on across the back there. Very important. Little short, stubby strokes here. Okie dokie. Now as you come forward now, keep in mind that the strokes get a little longer, and we're going to start getting the grass a little bit brighter, and you can see it's starting to look just like the photograph. This is a wonderful technique for creating soft, delicate grasses. A little brighter, a little stronger, a little longer. And we will, of course, come back in the very foreground and make individual weeds. I mean, we'll have to do that just because you can't have this stroke all the way down. We'll come in here in a minute and make some longer individual weeds after we get the color here like we want it. Okie now. I think we're okay for the moment. Now see, you got dark spots and light spots, and that's what gives this grass a lot of depth. Now there isn't 2 or 3 techniques. Now I'm going to do a couple of different ones on you here. Sometimes you could take this brush, if you get it flat enough down here on your palette, turn it sideways. Like this, and you can make some of the grasses. So that's what we're going to do right quick now, is turn it sideways and just kind of dab through this foreground and keep them, it's got to stay thin. But this is how you get some of the closer up grass. Maybe make some a little whiter. I've done a number of paintings where this technique really came in handy. I've done some buffalo paintings where you're right on a Midwestern prairie, and boy, it was just beautiful. This gives it a little texture, and it makes it look a little bit more like individual grass blades, and it creates sort of the seed pods that you see on them and so forth. And you just kind of go through, and it's really beautiful. As long as you keep the thing thin and you keep a color that's a little bit contrasting against what's there, man, this thing will really do you a good job. Do it quickly. You're just dabbing it. You're not pushing it. Like I said, we will have a few more larger weeds and things in the foreground, but right now we won't. Mostly just using yellow and white, working it evenly distributed across the end of your brush. Okay. Now see, you got to have some that kind of go different directions too. Don't make them all going straight up and down. Okey-dokey. Now, wasn't that fun? Okay, then what you're going to do is take your script brush. Well, actually, let's take our little sable brush, this little flat sable. And you come in here with some now that are really very light. And as we've done in the past, so you'll just drag your brush up. Now, I think what we'll do is we're going to wait for this to dry so that they'll stand out better. But you're going to want to have some that have a little more flexibility, some that you can see that are kind of bent over here and there, just mostly in the foreground though, okay? And that really brings this out. And then we'll end up with a little, little flowers and things that you see in the painting, and I'll show you how to do those. We're just kind of dab them around, but let's not get carried away with that just yet, because we're going to put a little more color in here. All right, let's see how this is looking. Okay, that's good and dry. I think the next step now should be to get these horses sketched in here. And like I mentioned to you, this may be a lot of your all's biggest problems is sketching these horses. Now, I'm going to go ahead and sketch mine, and what I'd like for you to do, if you want to put this on pause, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to see if I can get a close-up of this here, right in on the animals. We'll hold that for a moment, let you get a good look at it, put it on pause, and then you'll see it enlarged there so that you can use it as a study to sketch from. So while I'm sketching mine, why don't you shut me off for a minute and sketch yours, okay? Or watch me sketch mine and then shut me off. Okie dokie. Now what I'm going to do is start here. Now notice the top of the back of the horse is just barely breaking the horizon line, and that's excellent because this rust colored horse against the green background are complementary colors, and that's going to be great. Alright, so I'll start here, have a little hump here, back goes back this way, goes like this, like that, head comes down, neck comes down here, we have an ear. Now her head and everything is down here in the grass, so you can't really see it, which may be good for some of you, so you want to paint it. Now here we're going to have a leg here, and we have a leg here that's kind of angled back. And we'll just do whatever we have to do to make this work now. Now, of course, the baby stands right here beside her. Boy, he looks proud, doesn't he? I mean to tell you, he is a crackerjack. I'm going to have to erase a little bit here. You want to be sure that all of your proportions and everything are in order. This is very, very important in this painting. For instance, now we have this leg coming back here at an angle. Okay, and in order for that, and then this little horse here, the baby, his leg overlaps his mama's leg. Okay, so that's how you know if everything's right, by how everything is in proportion to something else. Okay, and then he's got his tail right there. Got a real rounded rear end, big dip in his back. Okie dokie. Now this is where you may have a little problem. I gotta raise the neck up a little bit there. I'm gonna scoot this over so I can see it better. One thing you can do too, you can ad lib a little bit. When you start painting, you can kind of adjust it as you go. Okay, he's got a leg back here, he's got one in the front. You know, they got these long spindly legs here. And there's the other ones right there. Okay. Now you got to keep in mind that this comes down and in between, and then this comes back like that. Chest comes up. Down and out like that. A little more angle to his neck. Now he's got an ear, an ear. Once again, if you feel pretty confident with your brush, you won't have to do too much with your pencil here. Alright, now this has got to be kind of a square there, there. Then you'll see a little bit, you know, of her hind legs there, but you won't see too much. It's kind of hidden back there, so you know, you don't have to worry too much about her legs. Mostly just his body and her body. Okay, now I think we're pretty much there. A little more dip there, I think. She's fairly big, you know. She's got quite a bit of a barrel body. She's given birth here, and okay. I think we're in business. So if you've got yours sketched, let's get this show on the road. This is going to be a lot of fun and a little frustrating, but that's just part of painting. Okay. Now, the first place we start is, of course, with the mother, because she's behind, and then we do him who's in front, and we just block her in with a solid color. Start with the dark first, however. Use pure burnt umber, and wherever you see real dark areas, like on the back leg here, block in the darkest areas of her body first. It's like this. In fact, this whole front part of her is pretty dark right here. Both legs are dark, and this whole front part of her chest is kind of dark. A little darkness here and there. A little darkness right back there from her back leg. Now you take this brown, this burnt umber, add some white to it, little sienna, burnt umber, sienna, and a little white. And block in it. It's a little too much white there. Stick with the burnt sienna and a little stronger on the browns. Had too much white. That's a little bit better. And now just quickly block in the rest of her body and just kind of gently go around the baby. And be sure, if you have to cover up part of the baby, go ahead. Just because if you don't, you're going to end up having a patch up around it, and that won't be good. Okie dokie. We're making progress here. Now I'm going to switch to the small brush because the ears are relatively dark here. So I want to block those in using my sable brush here. And build some more darks right in there. Now you have to be pretty sure that the canvas is fairly covered, because if it's not, you'll have a little problem. Now you can't really see the rest of her face there, so just do the best you can with what you got, because there'll be some grass and weeds and things up around there. Okay, now I'm going to double check and make sure I got all my forms correct. Legs are especially important. Now there's no magic formula here. The secret is just keeping your brush strokes gentle and soft, and don't get carried away with it. Don't try to make every detail count. Alright, now after you've blocked her in and you feel fairly confident that you've got it like you want it, then you come over here and you, if you want to, you can go ahead and block the baby in. And because he's a, I'm going to sneeze, excuse me, wasn't expecting that. There must be a lot of pollen in the air here. Okay, the baby, since he's a white horse, generally we block him in a blue or a gray. I think we'll use a bluish gray here. So if you take a little burnt sienna, a little purple, touch of blue, take your light blue violet, and I've got some mud in my brush, so it turned it kind of gray because it had some white in it. Go ahead and just block him in, because his whole situation is going to be mostly we'll be highlighting him mostly with white and some little spots there, as you can see. Okay, now you can only go so far with this large brush, so wipe your brush out, get your smaller one, your flat one here. And block him in as best you can here, very carefully. Alright, now we're cooking. Okay. Again, it's important to get all your, just the basic forms there as correct as you possibly can. And you got this one here. You got this leg here. We're just about done blocking in, and we'll start highlighting. Okay. Now I would take that same color right over here on the front of the head where this diamond shape is. Put that there because it's going to be white. Okay. Now we've got them blocked in, and even in their blocked in state they look fairly decent. Now while they're drying, let's go back and highlight our trees right quick and maybe put a few pieces of, a little more work down here. Switch to your number 10 brush, and down here on your palette get a little yellow and white, a touch of green maybe. Let's just test and see. That's not going to be quite the color. I want more of a yellowish, more of a springtime color. Okay, here we go. That's it. and just highlight sort of the outer edge of your trees here. Just the right hand side of the clumps. Now, not just on the very edge, but you know, on the top right hand side of most of them. This will give them just a little bit more highlight, a little more three-dimensional than what we had. Just like so. Here and here, just anywhere that there's a good spot for a highlight and you can create more of a form to your tree, then that's what you should do. Add a little more yellow and white to it, that's fine. And if you decide to later on, we probably won't do it in this tape, but you know, if you want to add a few tree limbs or maybe anything else back in there, you can, but they have to be very subtle. Now there is a fence back there that we're going to add, but that's a very simple thing to do. It kind of goes across back here, as you can see, and that's, I think, important in here. Kind of identifies that they're on a farm. And okay, maybe just a little more highlight right there. We're going to be okay. Okay, now while they're still drying, let's switch to your little sable brush again. And you take a little green and brown and, you know, just kind of get some of these earth tone mixtures. And let's pull up a few darker ones here and there now. Don't be afraid. Just scatter them around, especially in the foreground. Green and brown, a little purple in there with it. Okay. This just adds a little contrast to things. You don't have to get really elaborate with it, but you do need a few of these darker ones in here. Be loose and free. Keep your hand back towards the end. You can kind of go through and scatter just some darker areas. You don't have to make great big weeds, but you can go through and scatter some darker suggestions of weeds through here if you want to. Okay, I think we've just about got enough of these in here. Now let's put in our fence back there while we're still waiting for them to dry. They have to be good and dry before we can start highlighting them. And the process is going to be relatively simple. Now just take a little round brush here and let's just come back here in the background and put a few fence posts here. You might see the tip of it sticking up above her back. There, there, and say there. Okay. You see, little by little, the thing's starting to come alive. Now you switch to your script brush, and you take some white. And you just barely, I mean, you don't even want to make them all the way across. This is what you just call creating an illusion that it's there, but you don't make solid lines, because if you do, it gets out of hand. I'm going to erase the charcoal from around there. See a little bit across there, there. You just dry brush across. And that's how you get those blocked in there. And you can go ahead if you want to, and put a little highlight on the edges of them. Now, we forgot to discuss the fact that the sunlight is coming in from the right-hand side on this painting. So that's an important thing for you to remember. See, like so. Now, take your paper towel and erase or wipe off any charcoal so that it won't get in the way of your highlighting and kind of destroy your feelings about it. Now we're going to start back on her back here with your little sable brush, and you're going to use 3 or 4 basic colors. Let's clear out a small spot here on my palette so we'll have a little room to work. There we go. Now, we're going to use burnt sienna, yellow, red, and white for the most part. Those are the 3 colors we're going to use. And it's a fairly warm and fairly bright color. Now you just start on her back here, and you hold your brush back here. And all I can do is show you the technique. You're going to have to study the horse to see exactly where everything is. But I start back here like this, like right here where the shoulder is. I'll put a little stronger highlight. You just dry brush these highlights on. Come around on her hind end back here. Fairly bright spot there. It's a fairly dry brush technique. Now there's part of her stomach here. Okay. You see, we start building the darks and the lights using the umber. You have to come back. A little bit on this leg right there. Now you won't see near as much detail on her as you will on him. But what's important about her is that whatever highlights you put on, they are in the right spot and they are fairly dramatic, which we will keep brightening them until they are dramatic. Of course, her tail starts up here too, and it's got to come down. So that's going to be a little brighter. You'll see it come down past his head here, but that's got to be dark underneath there first. Now it's really hard to see exactly what's behind him because of the way her legs are right there. So don't get panicked about that. You just kind of have to ad-lib that, because that's what I have to do and that's what any artist has to do. Okay, now keep picking up some highlights here, and we're going to come over to the mane. Now the mane on this horse is it comes down, and you don't see a lot of it, but you see bits and pieces of the hair just kind of hanging down over on her neck. Okay, and the top of her head here. Okay, you see how that's starting to develop? A little more right there where the barrel of her stomach is. Muscles right here on her hind end. It's kind of a dark spot right there. There. Now you got to highlight the edge of her neck here and make it just a little redder. Shoulder, and just kind of dry brush like this. On the very edge of her legs, there's going to be a fairly bright highlight. And it kind of makes her stand out there. A fairly good size highlight on her face and the edge of her ear. Going to make her mane a little brighter. Now remember, you have to keep going over some of these highlights sometimes several times in order to get the brightness that you want. Okay, and you just have to keep working at it, very gradual increments. Okay, now we're going to put a real snappy highlight just right on the edge. That on her shoulder here, anywhere that you can get a little bit more of a highlight, and there's a little highlight there where her shoulder is, and here where her neck comes and ties into the body. Okay, just keep blending like this gradually. Okay, now we've got most of the intermediate highlights on her, and when we get ready to finish her, what we're going to do is take your yellow and your white and your red and get a very, very intense highlight. And you'll probably want to experiment with this on your own too. But this real bright highlight is what makes her really stand out and apart from the baby. Now if you want to make it a little redder than that, don't hesitate. And don't be afraid to just get in there and, soften it with your finger or whatever. But there are just certain areas of her body that need this really intense highlight. That's what makes her look rounded, makes her coat look kind of shiny and healthy. Back there's a little kind of a highlight right there on her back. See that? It makes her back stand out. There's a shoulder right there that's got a little highlight on it. Lots of places where there's little tiny touches of highlight that really will be important in making her look complete. Same thing on the neck here. And we've got to get that very soft highlight there where that muscle is. And then in between, of course, you still have a few areas like here on her side there where her stomach is. And in between that, you have to come in and just sort of suggest that there's some little fur, and I mean not fur, but hair, side of her head there. And again, the mane still needs to have some highlights on it that are a little bit more defined. And you can see her starting to really come alive. Now she's not going to need a whole lot more work, just maybe a little softening, and maybe adding some darker areas or some real darks and a few areas where you can work in there. Now where we really need to get working now is on this little baby. Now he's going to require mostly just your white with a little mud in your brush, which I've got there, just a touch. Anything will do just to kill the white. Let's go here and start on his head. And let's start building in the white areas of this little guy. And it's kind of a washy color. And then we'll put the spots on him. Let's just get the whites in there first, and then we'll put the spots on. Really, he's not defined real well as far as deep shadows go, so that makes him just a little bit more difficult to do. See, on her it didn't take many highlights to make her look three-dimensional, but on him it's going to take a little bit more. Okay, let's go ahead and kind of block in his tail here. It's just sort of a swish, kind of dry brush. Boy, he's cocky looking. I'll tell you what, I'll bet he is too. You know how these youngsters are. Okay, now, on down here. Okay, I'm just sort of dry brushing right now, getting a little bit of the whitish color on him. It won't take long and he'll start really looking good. Okay, I'm just dry brushing very quickly just to get the white. Okay. Now he is a little darker under his stomach there, so we'll take a little bit of blue and brown and darken right underneath here just slightly. That'll help define him some. You can see the other side of that leg back there, but it's kind of dark also. Now his mane and his tail have a little, not his tail, but his mane is a little dark. It's right down on his back there. He's got a couple of ears that are fairly dark. His eye, go ahead and block his eye in right there. See, he's starting to come alive now. His nostril. Right there where that goes up underneath. Now let's go in and smudge in some of the brown. So take your brush now with just some of this umber, and it's got a little water in it, and I want you to just smudge in selected areas. Just little patches of brown like this. And you don't really have to follow the photograph because these spots could have been anywhere on this little guy. Then after we get the spots on him, all we got to do is brighten the whites up and he's done. And then we'll put the shadows on the ground and a few weeds, and you've got a beautiful horse painting up, and something you never thought you could do, I bet. Okay, now after you've gotten a few spots kind of smudged in here and there, then we go back to the white again. And wherever you can, now's the time to accent the whites on his body. Just don't leave any hard lines like that. You got to always go back and kind of soften them, work in and around these little brown spots you put in there. I'm going to put a real bright highlight across on the top of his nose, and I'm just going to switch to my little round brush now, not the script brush, but this little round sable. And I have a little more control over it. See, that really makes his head stand out. That's really sharp. A little sharper here. A little bit of shadow highlight around the eye. And on this front leg here now, there'll be a little highlight down. Those are the things that really make him stand out. You switch back to this, your flat one, and find a few areas where the highlight's going to be very bright. And a couple of the spots where that is like on his hind end back here is a good spot for a little brighter white. Looks really good. Right there on his back. Where his leg joins on there, forming the hip. And the legs themselves are very white. Isn't he sharp? Just by using a few quick strokes and knowing where to put the highlights so that it's most effective, you have got yourself a beautiful little horse. Highlight on the edge of his ears there. Where most of us go wrong, we spend too much time trying to make it look like a photograph. Keep in mind that the artist's whole idea about painting is to create an illusion of depth, feeling, emotion, hot and cold or whatever is going on out there. And that's what we're doing here. We're just, by putting a few proper highlights, making this little guy really come alive and look as spunky as he is. And they are just a little stiffer. They're just a little stiffer than a big horse. It's just the way they are. Come around his nose there. Now we could spend a lot of time on him trying to fix him up. And he's just about there. It's going to just, all you have to do is do a little refining now. I'm going to come down here on her head and make that just a little bit whiter, which is very important. Now let's let them dry. And I want to get some shadow underneath here where they're standing, and the shadow will come across this way. So let's take our number 10 brush here, rinse it out, and I'm going to take a little green and I'm going to take a burnt sienna with a touch of green, maybe a little burnt umber in it, maybe a little purple even. And I'm not going to put too much on it, so kind of wipe some of it out. And come up and down underneath your painting like this. And we got to get the shadow going in here, and it's got to come on out here a little bit. Now that's going to have to get much darker than that, so don't be afraid to get in there and do it. Because if you'll notice on the photograph that there is not a strong shadow here, but we're going to put one, and then there's lots of little pieces of grass that are growing up around them. Okay, so we'll add some grass there. But get the shadow here where they're standing. Then you'll take your script brush. At this point in time, you will go through in selected areas throughout the entire foreground, and you're going to find places where you want weeds, just individuals like this. Definitely, of course, around the horses. You see several weeds that are pretty tall that come up in front of him, in front of her. And I just go through my entire painting like this very quickly. And I just put them just anywhere I can. Very loose and free. And this really adds a nice touch to the painting. So you just don't do it just right there. But instead of spending tons of time on this, I want to show you how to get it started. What I do is I just get my brush going like this, up and down throughout. And every time I stop at the top or something, it creates one of those little, kind of like a seed pod or something. Really is interesting to watch this develop here like this. Up and down like so. A few brighter ones here and there. I'm just using mostly yellow and white. Yellow and white. Just go all through the foreground here. And this gives it the final touch that you want it to have. This is a beautiful painting. And I'll tell you what, you can do a lot of other things. You can do cattle, and you can do all kinds of animals in settings similar to this. Okay, now after you've got most of the weeds in there where you want them, and you may want to put more, and you may want to put some other colors, that's fine too. You can see there's lots of little fluffy things in there, little flowers, weeds that have little, I don't know what these are, just little flowers, I guess, little white flowers going through. I think you just go through and kind of dab those in and have a little texture to them. And like I said before, if you want to add a little more color to it, you can do that too. This is just what the doctor ordered. I mean, you can put little yellow ones or red ones. It doesn't really make a whole lot of difference because there are there's lots of color in there. Okay, folks, I think I'm about ready to call it quits for now. No sense in spending a whole lot more time on this when you can just take whatever time you want to spend on it to add whatever you want to add. Play with your horses, the highlighting and the shadows, which are absolutely critical, of course. And we'll just finish this up here. Now you might, however, before I forget, you can put a bird flying if you want to. Like I said, little things that I'm not going to do or don't have an interest in doing. And also I'm probably going to end up with a few more brighter, thicker weeds in the foreground like this, maybe just more yellow. Okay? And then you'll have it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. I certainly have. And we'll see you again on another one of our tapes, and we'll learn something new. God bless you. Stay inspired, and we'll see you again.